Homeless boy asks for $1, but what happens next will leave you speechless. One chilly evening in Los Angeles, under the glowing neon lights of Hollywood Boulevard, a young boy, no older than 12, huddled against the cold. His name was Alex, and his ragged jacket offered little protection against the biting wind. The streets outside the Regent Theater were slick with rain, and hunger gnawed at his insides. Alex had never known a life like this before. Just a few months ago, he had lived with his mom, Heather, in a small but cozy apartment. But after a series of unfortunate events, her chronic illness, mounting medical bills, and their eventual eviction, he found himself here, asking strangers for help. It wasn't the first time Alex had asked for spare change, but tonight felt different. As the doors of the theater opened, celebrities spilled out into the night air, their laughter and chatter filling the space. Among them, one figure caught Alex's eye, Emily Watson, a famous actress his mom adored. She looked just as elegant as he had imagined, her black evening gown shining even in the rain. Alex's heart raced as he approached her, barely able to speak. His voice was small, almost lost in the noise of the crowd, but he managed to say, "Excuse me, miss. Could you spare $1? Just for some food?" His eyes dropped to the ground, shame flushing his cheeks as he avoided meeting her gaze. But what happened next changed his life. Emily paused, taking a moment to study him with gentle eyes. Behind her, Chris Hemsworth, another star Alex hadn't noticed, quietly observed the interaction. He was tall, his presence powerful yet kind. Emily, though surrounded by her security team, waved them off, signaling that she would handle the situation herself. Instead of reaching for her wallet as Alex expected, she crouched down to his level, the elegance of her designer dress pooling around her feet as she made sure to meet his eyes. "Hey there," she said, her voice soft and full of warmth. "How about we talk about more than just $1?" In that simple moment, the course of Alex's life began to change. The warmth in Emily's voice and her genuine concern made him feel seen, not as a beggar, but as someone who deserved help. Little did Alex know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would not only transform his life but also his mother's, and it would start with a kindness that, at first, seemed small but would grow into something extraordinary. As Alex nervously shifted his weight from one foot to the other, his heart still racing from his brave request, Emily's gaze remained steady, full of concern. Behind her, Chris Hemsworth quietly stepped closer, his towering frame a comforting presence that seemed to somehow make the world feel safer, even in the chaos of the Hollywood night. The security team lingered, unsure of how to handle the situation, but Emily gave them a subtle wave, signaling them to back off. This wasn't just about a quick exchange of money, it was about something far more important. "Where's your family?" Emily asked gently, her voice laced with concern. Alex's eyes flickered between her and Chris, his throat tight. He wasn't used to having someone truly care, let alone someone like Emily Watson. He shifted uneasily, his oversized t-shirt bunching in his hands, as he explained in a shaky voice, "My mom, she's sick. She works so much, but it's never enough. We don't have a home anymore. Our car is 3 blocks away." Chris, listening intently, stepped forward, his voice calm but filled with understanding. "You're doing this for your mom, aren't you?" he asked, his words quiet but powerful. Alex nodded, his eyes filling with tears. He had done everything to stay strong for his mom, but the weight of everything was becoming too much to bear. The embarrassment of asking for help, the worry about his mom, and the fear of what the future held, all of it seemed too heavy to carry alone. Emily's eyes softened as she knelt down to his level, her dress trailing behind her, yet she seemed oblivious to the rain-soaked streets. "You don't have to carry this burden by yourself," she said, her voice full of reassurance. "Let's get your mom, bring her here, and figure this out together." Alex blinked in disbelief. This wasn't the response he had expected, not from a celebrity, not from anyone. And yet, Emily was doing something no one had ever done for him, she was offering him more than just a handout. She was offering him hope. Before Alex could even process what was happening, Emily pulled out her phone and dialed her assistant. "Get a car here. We're picking up his mom. We're going to fix this." As she spoke, Chris gently draped his leather jacket over Alex's shoulders, providing warmth both physical and emotional. "Sometimes," Chris said with a soft smile, "the universe puts the right people in the right place at the right time. Tonight, that's us." Alex couldn't believe it. A simple plea for $1 had just opened a door to a world he never thought possible, a world where people like Emily and Chris didn't just help, they cared. And this was just the beginning. As the sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb, Alex couldn't believe what was happening. Only hours ago, he had been on the cold, rain-soaked sidewalk, desperately asking for $1 to feed himself. Now, here he was, sitting in the back of a car with two of Hollywood's biggest stars, Emily Watson and Chris Hemsworth, talking to him like he was someone important. The moment felt surreal, like a dream he was too scared to wake up from. The car ride to the nearby parking lot where his mom was waiting felt like a blur. His thoughts were racing, trying to process the kindness being thrown at him from every direction. Emily's calming voice kept him grounded, reassuring him that everything would be okay. Chris, always warm and friendly, made small talk with him, asking about his interests, his school, anything that might take his mind off the whirlwind events happening around him. When they arrived at the parking lot, Heather, Alex's mom, was there, looking bewildered as she glanced between her son and the two stars. Her exhaustion was visible in the way she carried herself, her work uniform wrinkled from another long shift. But as soon as she saw Alex, her face softened, and she rushed to him, wrapping her arms around him like she was afraid he might disappear. Emily stepped forward first, gently touching Heather's shoulder. "We're here to help," she said, her tone both comforting and serious. "Let's get you two settled. We'll talk more once we're inside." Heather was too stunned to speak, her eyes darting from Alex to Emily and Chris. She didn't know what was happening, but she knew this wasn't just a lucky coincidence, it felt like fate. As they all piled into the SUV, Emily made a call, and soon, they were heading toward a restaurant, a quiet, upscale Italian place that Emily had arranged for them to dine at privately. The smell of freshly baked bread and rich pasta filled the air as they entered, and Alex couldn't believe the luxury of it all. It wasn't just the food, it was the care, the attention to detail, and the way both Emily and Chris made him feel like he mattered. After they were seated, the conversation flowed easily. Chris made jokes, trying to ease the tension, and Emily asked Heather about her job, about the struggles they'd been facing. Then, Emily dropped the bombshell: she had arranged a place for them to stay, an apartment, fully stocked, with everything they needed. And it wasn't just a place to sleep, it was a new beginning. "Think of it as a fresh start," Emily said, her eyes meeting Heather's with a look of quiet understanding. "You won't have to worry about where you're going to sleep tonight or tomorrow. We've got you." For the first time in months, Alex felt like he could finally exhale. The road ahead still seemed uncertain, but with Emily and Chris's help, it no longer felt impossible. As they finished dinner, the overwhelming weight of their kindness settled in. Alex knew his life had changed that night, he just didn't know yet how much. But he would soon find out that this wasn't just an act of generosity, it was a turning point for him and his family, one that would set them on a path they never dreamed possible. As the weeks went by, Alex and Heather began to feel a shift in their lives. The apartment, which had once seemed like an impossible dream, now felt like home. Heather was adjusting to her new job at the hospital, and the stress of constant worry was finally starting to lift. She could pay bills, buy groceries without hesitation, and even have moments of peace, something that had been foreign to her for months. For the first time in what felt like forever, they were no longer in survival mode, they were building a life. But the real change wasn't just about the material things. It was the emotional transformation that both Alex and Heather experienced. Alex, for the first time in months, didn't feel the crushing weight of uncertainty. His grades started to improve, and he was actually excited about school again. He joined the science club and found that his dreams of becoming a doctor didn't feel so far-fetched anymore. It wasn't just that he had a roof over his head, he had a future now, and it was all thanks to Emily and Chris's unwavering support. They continued to check in on him, offering encouragement and guidance, but never demanding anything in return. But as much as their lives were changing, something deep inside Alex told him he couldn't forget where he came from. One afternoon, while walking home from school, Alex saw a boy in his class sitting alone on the steps, his clothes tattered and his eyes downcast. The sight hit Alex hard. It reminded him of his own struggles not long ago. Without a second thought, he rushed home, packed up an extra lunch, and the next day, he handed it to the boy in secret. The gratitude in the boy's eyes was more than enough. It was a small gesture, but it felt powerful, like the first step in paying forward the kindness he had received. Heather, too, found herself compelled to give back. She started a food pantry in their building, a quiet but impactful initiative that offered food to neighbors who might be struggling, without any shame or judgment. Both Alex and Heather were learning that it wasn't just about being given a second chance, it was about using that second chance to help others rise. The cycle of kindness had come full circle, and now, it wasn't just about the help they had received from Emily and Chris. It was about spreading that same warmth to others, creating a ripple effect that would continue long after the initial act of generosity. The lessons they had learned, about compassion, hope, and community, became the foundation of their new life. Every day, they found new ways to give back, knowing that sometimes the most profound changes come not from what we receive, but from what we share with others. Alex and Heather were no longer just surviving. They were thriving, and they were determined to make sure others could do the same. Months after that life-changing night, Alex and Heather had fully embraced their new reality. Their apartment, once just a place of refuge, had become a true home, filled with warmth and the quiet comfort of stability. Alex's grades soared as he found a renewed focus, thanks to the peace that now surrounded him. He was thriving in school, his passion for science growing every day. His dream of becoming a doctor, once just a far-off thought, now seemed possible, and it was all because of the kindness Emily Watson and Chris Hemsworth had shown him. Heather, too, had settled into her new life. Her work at the hospital, where she had started a position with full benefits, gave her the sense of purpose she had longed for. No longer did she have to choose between paying medical bills or buying groceries. For the first time in a long while, she had breathing room. Her health improved, the stress lifting from her shoulders. But even as their lives seemed to stabilize, the lessons they had learned from Emily and Chris were still with them, driving them to give back. One afternoon, Alex walked home from school with a sense of quiet pride. He had just received news that his science project had won first place in the school competition. The prize included a scholarship for future medical studies, a huge step toward his dream. He couldn't wait to share the news with Heather. When he called Emily to tell her, her voice was filled with joy, but it was the kind of joy that spoke volumes. She wasn't surprised. She had always believed in him. Chris sent his congratulations too, along with a box of medical textbooks that now filled Alex's bookshelf. "Keep chasing those dreams, kid. The world needs more healers," the note said. Those words became a driving force for Alex. His journey from homelessness to hope was far from over, but now, he had the tools, the support, and the vision to move forward. Heather's community food pantry had grown too, expanding to multiple buildings. The work she was doing was making a real impact. It wasn't just about feeding people, it was about offering them dignity and hope, just as she had received. She had also started a support group for families facing medical debt, using her own experiences to guide others through their struggles. As for Alex, he was no longer just a survivor, he was a leader, mentoring kids who reminded him of himself not so long ago. He had learned that what Emily and Chris had given him wasn't just a second chance, it was a chance to pay it forward, to help others rise, just as he had. Their story had come full circle, and now, it was inspiring a quiet revolution of kindness, one that stretched far beyond their own lives, touching communities and hearts in ways they could never have imagined. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts on the incredible acts of kindness that changed Alex and Heather's lives. Have you ever experienced a moment of unexpected generosity? We want to know how it made you feel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories that remind us all that kindness can truly make a difference. Let's keep the conversation going.